I'm optimistic that the delimitation bill would also be a reality in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So women's reservation and delimitation are promises. When it comes to the Congress party, they are very happy to postpone things. The sense of urgency with which the fencing is being taken even in the marshy lands of Sundarbans, that is something you would not have seen or imagined happening with another government in place.
What do we expect for this session?
Fortunately or unfortunately, democracy has always been a game of numbers.
There have been dramatic developments this week that will have a direct bearing or impact on the monsoon session of Parliament that starts on the 20th. This morning, the government cracked down on Sonam Wangchuk, who was fasting for 20 days at the Jantar Mantar in order to support the student protest that was started by the Cockroach Janta Party. In addition to this, also since April, we've seen a realignment of MPs within Parliament. So many opposition MPs in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha have switched sides to support the BJP and the NDA government. We also expect, or rather, we anticipate that the delimitation bill, which is a pet project of the party, of the BJP that is, and that will reconfigure Parliament, will be back on the agenda. To understand what the government's priorities are at this point, I am talking to author and national spokesperson of the BJP, Tuhin Sinha, in this episode of Keep Talking. Tuhin, thank you for making time.
Pleasure being on your show.
We are recording on a very dramatic day. If you're in Delhi or if you're following what is happening at Jantar Mantar, we saw Delhi police come and take away Sonam Wangchuk, who's been fasting for 20 days. Why has the NDA government, why has the BJP led NDA government not engaged with what is a very peaceful bunch of protesters and so many students that we are hearing over the past 20 days and more?
Well, first of all, Anuradha, I would take you back to 1952. There was a 58-day fast by Potti Sriramulu, you know, and eventually at the end of the fast, he died because nobody attended to him. So first of all, when you refer to this action of Sonam Wangchuk ji being taken to hospital, I think we had a responsibility to save his life, and I think the government has acted in a very timely fashion because CJP was using him, exploiting him for their advantage. And in fact, it is not that we did not try to reach out to him. There were officials who were prepared to go and explain to Sonam Wangchuk the steps which were being undertaken to, improve the examination system. In fact, even after the NEET paper leak in May, if you recall, immediately after that, we had announced that from next year, the NEET exams would be completely, in a digital format. While we appreciate activism, activism is an important part of democracy. When you make it my way or the highway, you know, piggybacking or, maybe allow yourself to be exploited by CJP to the extent where you make it difficult for conversation to possible for conversation to be possible. It's a difficult situation for the government also.
You just mentioned that there were some attempts to dialogue because we didn't see anything publicly, right?
The education ministry officials were supposed to meet him and explain the steps which have already been undertaken in the last 2 months to improve the examination system, and which we will continue to undertake. But the point is, the entire movement has been hijacked by CJP. And allow me a detour to explain why CJP is, a party which is completely seems to be naive in its ideas. First of all, even I would appreciate a students' movement. The 70s have seen a massive student movement leading to the birth of many politicians who are still active. But when you have a student movement, which names itself Cockroach Janta Party, first of all, they don't understand the difference between judiciary and the legislature, or judiciary and the government, because this term, if at all the term cockroaches were used for the youth of the country, unemployed youth of the country. It was not used by the government. So, first of all, if you don't understand the basic difference between the judiciary and the government, what kind of student protests are you going to lead in the country? That is for anybody to decide. But even during these protests, I can tell you, that Sonam Wangchuk was completely hijacked by some of these farcical activists from the CJP who were not allowed, who had left basically, who were not, who had basically, completely left no space for dialogue. And having said that, like I said, I mean, at the end of the day, activism, while it needs to be supported for the right reason, it has to be for the improvement of the system. It can't be about one individual to the extent that you're fasting for the removal of one individual. Imagine we are a country of 145 crore people. If this trend, if this becomes a normal trend, tomorrow somebody is going to start protesting for the removal of a particular IAS officer from the district. Tomorrow somebody is going to start protesting or go on a fast on to death to have a certain IPS officer removed from a particular district.
Let me tell you,
So
in the past few days, there are several people, young people I'm speaking to, extremely anxious, disturbed by what they are seeing, or senior citizens who watch television and also YouTube, okay, saying that, Are, this fellow, something is happening. Why are they not showing it on TV? Okay. The point I'm making to you with these anecdotal observations or experiences is that this has galvanized and got people's attention. This is about students across the country whose entire future is at stake. Okay. To your point about why is it one person that whose resignation they're looking for? Why aren't they looking at systemic change? What is wrong in asking for symbolic accountability in a democracy? To take accountability for lapses or failure, it may not be something that I am responsible for, but it has happened on my watch as the minister. This is a
so let
democratic
me
practice, and we are a
let me
democracy.
let me make it very clear that any paper leak is a huge embarrassment for the nation. It's a blot. When we talk about our achievements, it's undoubtedly a blot which embarrasses us. Having said that, if if the ministry is working towards improving the system, the final prerogative of whether a particular minister has to be blamed, a certain bureaucrat has to be blamed, let that be on the government. And that is where, while I completely support practical, practical activism, somewhere, like I mentioned, the activists also need to be a little bit honest about it. For example, when these protesters protest against the exam paper leak, do they tell the students that, listen, in the last 12 years, the total MBBS seats in the country have gone up
They've
from
just been
51.
able to.
Allow me to complete. Please allow me to complete. Do they mention that the total MBBS seats have gone up from 51,000 to 1,36,000 in the last 12 years? Do they mention that the total number of medical colleges have gone up from 387 to 823 today? I think if you're honest, you also need to mention that. And like I said, the government has never shied away from accepting that, yes, it's been a colossal failure. The immediate corrective step was to, decide that from next year, all of these papers will be conducted digitally. In about 50 days, the re-examination took place. But having said that, yes, nobody in his right sense can condone the paper leak, which is an embarrassment, which is a setback for our government, which has made massive improvements. Now, there are two ways to look at it. Like when you look at some of the Congress state governments today, Rahul Gandhi leads the student protest, but there were about 40 paper leaks which took place in Rajasthan during Ashok Gehlot's tenure, and in one of them, his own son was named. Did they sack Ashok Gehlot, or did they file an FIR against? So as against that, here is a government which is taking the onus, which is ready to expedite every possible way we can bring about the change. But like I mentioned, when you start this trend where you start demanding that one particular superintendent of police of a district has to be sacked, otherwise I'll fast on to death. And by the way, let me also take you into the history of fast on to death. You know, Iram Sharmila, the Manipur activist, from
Yeah.
2000 to 2016, she had gone on multiple fasts on to death.
She was living with a
And
pipe.
under different governments, whether it was, the BJP government or UPA government, eventually when dialogue became impossible, eventually, to save her life, whether it was the BJP government or whether it was the other government, UPA government, both had to employ the same practice of, trying to save her life.
Hmm.
And like I mentioned, the most glaring example of a fast on to death, Sri Ramalu ji was allowed to just die after 58 days because Nehru refused to give in to the demand of Andhra. In fact, you should do some research on that. There's a very interesting story. His death eventually led to the formation of Andhra Pradesh.
Hmm.
So we are sensitive, and I think, trust me, in the next 2 or 3 days, the way CJP has used Sonam Wangchuk, whom I personally respect a lot, will come out in the open. And I think, I think Sonam Wangchuk should have been a little more discerning in aligning himself with people with shady backgrounds and with very little understanding about the country.
So I can't claim to know the antecedents of the people who are running the CJP, but what I can claim to know is the complete disruption of students' lives that have happened because of exam paper leaks. We are talking about NEET in this particular case, but we also saw what happened with the CBSE marking system, and we had young students who were presented before parliamentary committees, isn't it, to explain how they saw how tenders were fixed. They also saw how this was not foolproof. Different young people working on this, right? So the anguish of students, the anguish of their families, is enormous because it's an entire future, which in any case is so difficult in a country of 1.4 billion people. It's just too difficult to deal with. You talked about the fact that there have been increases in the number of medical colleges, there have been increase in the number of seats, but even then, the demand from the students' end is humongous. You know that better than I do. The question I want to get to is, the Prime Minister in this over 12 years of leading India, one of his hallmarks as the way he conducts himself and the way he relates to the people of India is his connect with the youth, is pariksha pe charcha, right? That's a property where he talks to students at a time like this. I'm not saying that the Prime Minister should have gone to that stage, but to see a dialogue with Sonam Wangchuk from an emissary from the Prime Minister, for the Prime Minister to do a pariksha pe charcha where he head on takes on what has happened, and therefore what are the everything that the government is going to do to fix these systemic
See,
failures.
Prime Minister Modi is a doer. So,
Yeah.
every time he has been questioned, why don't you reach out to this
He's
individual? Why
also
don't
a
you?
talker, Tuhin.
The
He's also
the
a
the
communicator, and
he
he
has
communicates a
eventually
lot
he has
periodically.
eventually he has eventually overhauled the entire system. We saw this throughout the COVID
Hmm.
crisis, when people kept questioning how are we going to produce 200 crore dosage of vaccines and how are we going to administer that in 6 months time. You saw all of that happening. Now, if the prime minister chooses to do commentary like the Congress expects him to do, and we've seen it on every occasion, when it comes to why are we
Tuhin,
not speaking in favor of Iran, I mean, our actions speak louder than words. And I can tell you that, every crisis has been utilized as an opportunity to bring in systemic changes which ensure that those mistakes never happen again. And that is something precisely you will see happening over here also. When it comes to OSM on screen marking, that again is a revolutionary technology. Some of the advanced countries have implemented it. This was the first time we decided to implement it. In most of the countries where it was implemented, the first year saw some technical glitches. We were quick in accepting those glitches. But like I said, the on-screen marking is going to minimize the scope for errors, the scope for malpractices, any which way enormously. But yes, when you implement it for the first time, there are teething issues, there are technological issues, and those have been dealt with very promptly, very actively by the government. Having said that, any convenience caused to the students, I can understand the pain of the students, because I have a teenage son. This inconvenience is something which becomes more of an emotive issue. But if you look at it practically, like I said, there are so many steps which have been taken across the education sector, whether it is the implementation of NEP, the encouragement of Swabhasha,
Hmm.
where now medical education is available in native language. In the south, it has helped students enormously. So we stand committed to improving, education in all its form. I think it's just something which, obviously, the paper leak is something which has been an eye opener once again for us to usher in changes to transform the system.
You're saying that there is no need to engage directly because the prime minister is who speaks on behalf of the party, isn't it? I mean, to the entire country, it is when he speaks that a message goes out. Should he be doing a pariksha pe charcha based on addressing all the systemic changes that the government is going to make to ensure that we don't have this? I mean, it seems there were 152 paper leaks in the past 10 years, and in this recent NEET case, over 20 people have committed suicide. I mean, these are, families that are broken. You just mentioned being a parent. I don't know how anyone can deal with this anguish of children unable to see a future.
Well, I completely understand your anguish, and like I said, all the necessary steps are being taken. If you keep making it an emotive issue, of course, it's an emotive issue. But stating the obvious is something which we can do without, because we believe in practical steps which are being implemented. When you talk about, Prime Minister, why will the Prime Minister speak about these changes? Yes, he's spoken about changes across. So when you have a green hydrogen train, he's spoken about it. But like I said, the Prime Minister is a doer who ensures that the stuff is done, who ensures that the corrections are in place, are implemented, and then of course he will speak about it. But if you expect him to run a running commentary the way Rahul Gandhi does, that there's a difference over there.
Yeah. No, of
Rahul
course, he is
Gandhi,
the prime minister of this
Rahul,
country. Rahul Gandhi
yes,
is an
and that is
opposition
why
leader.
he's quietly working to ensure that systemic changes take place. While the world may have its own opinion, and we of course would engage with the right people. Why should we engage with a CJP whose own credentials are suspect? But we need to engage with responsible stakeholders, and trust me, in the starting, when the parliament meets starting Monday, there will be healthy discussion on all of these issues. Student agitation needs to have a little more substance, a little more gravitas, which is something, if you don't admit, I think you're not being honest to the cause. I support student optimism. I have witnessed that over the years, through the 90s also on specific issues. But the kind of student activism which you are seeing today, or rather, I would say, the kind of anarchy, attempt to manufacture anarchy which you're witnessing today, disguised as a so-called student movement, is not something which we should idealize, because that is going to do a lot of damage to our
Hmm.
democracy and to the future of the country. I
Okay,
mean,
let's do.
by bots can't bots purchased from Pakistan, and some of the unknown countries of Africa can't be replaced for genuine support on the ground. And that is what CJP is. It's a bot party.
So, on the 20th of July, as Parliament opens, they plan to march to Parliament, right? With the same protest, with the same demand. Do you expect this to have an impact on Parliament proceedings? Because even the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, the leader of the opposition, has been doing the student outreach and Chhatro Ka Goonj and
Like I said, we will obviously engage with the stakeholders in Parliament, because we have to, like I mentioned, explain the systemic changes which have been undertaken, and which some of which are underway, some of which have been implemented. We have to explain the plan for the future, whether it is digitalization of NEET exams. So yes, we will obviously be engaging with the right stakeholders, but like I mentioned, I mean, we will be engaging with the right stakeholders in Parliament, not with Andolan GVs, not with professionals who are there to serve their own purpose. I don't know which purpose they're serving.
Okay. And you don't think Sonam Wangchuk is one of them, but you think it was
Well,
ill-advised for them.
Sonam Wangchuk, if you look at his history, he has been a big admirer of Prime Minister Modi. In fact, as recently as February 2025, he has, he has praised Prime Minister lavishly for the climate initiatives undertaken by Prime Minister for the, net zero mission. So Sonam Wangchuk ji also needs to ponder how, how this turnaround, this huge turnaround has happened. Because even when it came to the Ladakh issue, and in fact, we would be happy if he focuses a little more on Ladakh issue. But the breakdown in dialogue happened only when he gave in to anarchy by one of the local leaders. It happened only when he made some absurd statements like if the Chinese were to invade us tomorrow, some of us would have to support them. The breakdown in communication happened only post that. So I think
Breakdown
Sonam
of
Wangchuk ji.
communication happened also because he was picked up and put into jail, isn't it?
So nobody's randomly picked up. There were indications that he was in touch with certain people who were acting against the interests of the country. Nobody's picked up randomly, right? So I think Sonam ji also needs to explain why in the last 1.5 years he seems to have gone completely against the government after repeatedly acknowledging the good work done by the government, after acknowledging with the education minister himself, which only shows that, the scope for dialogue was always open from our end.
Tuin, let's talk about the business of Parliament in the monsoon session. I've been reading reports of a list of bills that will come up, ranging from increase in the number of Supreme Court judges, prevention of insult to national honor, which will include the Vande Mataram national song. But I don't see the delimitation bill, which is a big deal, isn't it, for the BJP?
Well, some things are surprises which need to be experienced firsthand. So, yes, I mean, delimitation is a commitment. It's something for the future of the country. For the last 51 years, the seats in the Lok Sabha and our legislatures have not increased. But if you look at the population, that has gone up enormously. So today, with a 97 crore total voters in the Lok Sabha, those 97 crore voters belong to 543 Lok Sabha constituencies. Each Lok Sabha member, on an average, caters to about 17 lakhs constituents. Now, if this goes up to 825 or 826, as is being anticipated and proposed right now, the total number of constituents which each Lok Sabha member would have to cater to comes down to 11 lakhs. So obviously, this would make the representatives more accessible, more focused on ground issues, which is something which we need going ahead. Also, we need youth from non-dynastic political families, women from non-dynastic political families to enter politics in a significant number. Because, I mean, till the time you have professionals, till the time you have people who have come up the hard way, enter politics and be a part of the decision making system, you will not see paradigm changes. And those paradigm changes are very important given the targets we have for the next 20 years. So all of these make it very important that the delimitation bill gets passed, and I'm hoping that it will get passed. Many things are not listed because, like I said, the conversations, the discussions around it is still ongoing. But I am hopeful, I'm optimistic that the delimitation bill would also be a reality in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Well, the BJP has been working at making it a reality, right? Because after the April flop, if I can use that word, where this bill was brought in and it failed to go through the Lok Sabha, We've had since April to the monsoon session, we have seen so many MPs, both in the upper house and in the lower house, switch over either to the BJP or to parties that will pledge their
Well,
support.
Anuradha, democracy is a game of numbers, and I think I'm sure you have lived the 1990s. I still recall the words of Vajpayee ji when we lost the 13-day government, when we lost the trust vote at the end of the 13-day government in 1996, where he said, "सत्ताएं आती हैं, जाती हैं, सरकारें आती हैं, जाती हैं, लोकतंत्र मजबूत होना चाहिए." So it's, time has come a full circle. Fortunately or unfortunately, democracy has always been a game of numbers. Through the 90s, we were struggling for numbers, and in these 30 years, things have turned around in a way where we have different political parties, competing with each other to align with the BJP or, to join the BJP in some way. Now, point is, should we be guilt shamed for it? I
Yes,
think
you
it's a,
should, because you should, because you came to this to this platform saying that you're a party with a difference. And today, most of the MPs who switch over are either doing it, and this is on the record. Many of them say that they're starved of any official funds and resources with which they can do their legitimate work as MPs, and others we have absolute evidence in public that government institutions like the ED, etc., go after them, make life miserable, as a result of which they pivot. So you have the number, but at great ideological reputation and cost, isn't it, for your
well,
party?
we are still the only party with an absolute difference, because which other party, acts with the kind of with this sense of purpose and urgency when it comes to fulfilling our promises. So women's reservation and delimitation are promises. When it comes to the Congress party, they are very happy to postpone things. They would be
I'm
happy if
not
it doesn't.
interested in the Congress party
No, no.
at
So,
all,
like I
Tuhin.
said,
I'm only
like I
interested in
said,
your party because you
no, no.
run
So
the
that's what I'm
government at
explaining. Why?
in India, in Maharashtra, in Mumbai, and
So
in,
that's what I'm
so
explaining. Why are
three
these?
levels of government
Why?
is run by your party. I'm
So
only
that's what I'm.
interested in your
That's
party.
that's what I'm explaining. Why are these realignments happening? They are happening for a larger good cause, in the interests of the nation, in the interests of the youth, in the interests of the women. Had it been happening with a surreptitious motive to support Pakistan, like it, I mean, which has been one of the key objectives of the Congress party,
No,
it would have.
that's not fair. But anyway, let that be. I'm not going to engage with
It's
that.
happening for a stated, it's
In this
happening for a
conversation.
well stated objective in the larger interests of the nation and the youth.
So you're saying that the ends justify the means where it comes to the BJP and the kind of MPs that it is showing up from different parties.
Number one, most of these parties which are breaking away were absolutely disgruntled with their own leadership. Have you spoken to anybody from the Uddhav Sena about the way the people have been ignored by Uddhav Thackeray for years? He has been completely inaccessible. Have you spoken to any of the TMC MPs, the 22 of them, how, the kind of entitlement of Mamta Banerjee and Abhishek Banerjee had, they would treat the remaining members like their personal slaves? So, first of all, the kind of disappointment, the kind of anger which these parties have towards their own leaders, though the ones which are breaking away to align with the BJP, that also needs to be understood. Today, the work culture has changed, and in this situation, many of these MPs who want to work were just feeling underutilized or non-utilized. So that's one reason. Number two, have we not honored the legitimate requirements or the stipulations of the anti-defection law? If legally these alignments make sense, then obviously, I mean, morality any which way is subjective. I'm telling you that these alignments are happening, realignments are happening because at the end of the day, we want to expedite certain changes, which, had the Congress been in power, would not have taken place for the next 20 years.
So, in simple English, the ends justify the means at this point of time.
If the larger cause is in the interest of the country and the youth.
So, delimitation, can I tell you, as someone sitting in Mumbai, I don't understand why we need more MPs and more MLAs and more people's representatives, because even the ones we have are just, if all we are seeing is VIP culture, we are seeing entourages, and we are seeing people seeking political power, because in India today that seems to be the only sure short way to succeed. So why would we want more of these people?
Well, this change,
And these people are going to be a drain on our resources, on public
well,
finances.
the change of culture, work culture is going to take slightly more time. Today, I mean, you have a 24 by 7 work culture. Our MPs are, most of them, are accessible throughout 24 by 7. And if they are not, you would invariably find them being replaced by some other member of parliament. So this complete change of culture will take slightly more time, which is where you need youngsters from non-political parties or non-political backgrounds, non-dynastic backgrounds to enter politics in a huge way. This will anyway lead to a generational shift in politics, which is currently underway. Obviously, the Congress party and others realize it late. One of the reasons why they have fell out of favor with the voters. But a massive generational shift is underway in Indian politics, if you have seen it.
Talk about the concerns of the southern states and that assurance of 50% increase in southern states as well, which is what is making, someone like Supriya Sule of the NCP, Sharad Pawar, say that she's looking to see if they want to give support based on this. Of course, it might be a merged party and an NDA constituent. We don't know at this point. I have no knowledge. I'm
Even
only
I
going.
don't know. Even I don't know. Even I don't know.
So, and of course, then on the opposition front, you have the DMK and Congress, mad with each other over the
No,
TVK
so
alliance. So,
if you recall the last discussion in Parliament, Home Minister Amit Shah ji was very categorical. You give me 1 hour, I'm ready to, let the Parliament disperse, and my office will bring in a fresh clause wherein, the 50% assurance of increase in every state will be inserted. But the opposition parties chickened out. So, that has been factored in, if you ask me, and any which way that has been communicated. I understand that there is an article, uh, uh, a stipulation under Article 81, where it may not be specified in the bill in as many words, but that is an understanding which any which way has been communicated to to political parties across the country, that it will be a proportionate increase and that no state will have to will get a feeling that it's been left out or not got its due from the delimitation.
will this assurance be part of the bill, you would
Well,
imagine?
that
Will
is
this
something which we are going to we have to wait and see. But like I said, I mean, this was a bone of contention even in April, so that has been factored in, and we will take it as it comes.
I was speaking to a Kattar Ram Bhakt, Ram Mandir BJP supporter who lives in Nalasopara. Okay. Spent those days of July when Mumbai sort of went down because of the monsoon, without electricity, with water in his house, without access to food because shops and markets were closed, and without network. Okay. Today, the same guy is also seeing that Ram Mandir Trust is being, there are allegations of chori. Isn't
Hmm.
this something that will really shake, or hasn't this, and let me rephrase that, hasn't this shaken the core faith that people have in your party, given where the party places the Ram Mandir? It is not just religious, it's also the fulcrum of your political and your larger nationalist messaging, isn't it?
Well,
Opposition.
certain things are absolutely indefensible, and the donation scam or the irregularities which have come to the fore in the Ram Mandir donation are absolutely indefensible. So yes, I mean that is something which embarrasses us, and it is our responsibility now to make sure that apart from the guilty getting punished, we also usher in long-term systemic changes so that such a thing never happens. So, which is something, like the SIT was constituted around the 10th of June by the UP government, which has done, I would say, has done a reasonably good job. And in any which way, it's now the entire investigation is being monitored by the Supreme Court. So one doesn't need to have to worry on that count. I would, like to highlight a difference over here. The same parties which are, latching onto the Ram Mandir issue today were conspicuous by their silence and non-commitment to the Ram Mandir cause throughout. So yes, while, it's an opportunity for them and I can't grudge them speaking on that issue, I don't think the present crisis takes away from the fact that it is us who have stood for the cause, and yes, it is our responsibility to ensure that what has happened now doesn't ever get repeated again.
So,
We are aware
Tuhin,
of the expectations of the Ram Bhakts, and we are aware of the responsibility that it entails upon us.
forget what the opposition parties are doing with it. They will take whatever they can. You would have done the same in their position. So that is not the issue. Keep that for the news debates, the news TV
Hmm.
news channel. I really want to get to the core of the difference and the meaningful purpose that the BJP offered to its followers. And a lot of it is now the BJP is just another political party. You've got power, you use this route, and now you behave like any other political party. How do you
So
feel?
I
Like,
think somewhere the problem lies
where's
with
the party?
somewhere the problem lies with the human mind. When you idolize some people in your youth, you tend to expect the same personalities all your life. So yes, I mean,
What does
probably
that mean?
maybe no, no. So, you can't expect the leaders of this generation to exactly speak the language of a Vajpayee ji or an Advani ji or a Dr. Murli Manohar Joshi. Why? Because, BJP was at a different stage at that point of time. The country was at a different stage at that point of time. And obviously, the social media lingo, the digital media lingo has changed all of that. So, but that doesn't mean that our core commitment has changed. Plus, like I mentioned, the if you look at BJP's journey from 1996, obviously when you are struggling for numbers, our whole articulation of issues, our whole worldview would be very different compared to what it will be when we have the numbers and we are on the going all out to fulfill our promises. Having said that, yes, I mean, at this point of time, we need to be humble. We need to ensure that the core um, values with which the party came into being are respected and which has been respected. Look at the huge change which Bengal is witnessing. And one of the key challenges, even,
The biggest change is no eggs for children of schools. Midday meal, come on, Tuhin. That
well,
even
you are
people who
trivializing. No,
no,
no, I
I'm not.
mean,
Actually, I'm not trivializing. It is children's health. Poor children getting an egg in their midday meal scheme. I'm not trivializing. I'm using what
well,
is
that I am sure that can be reviewed. But like I said, if you look at the battle against radicalization, I think for us that has been a core issue which has remained consistent for the last 4 decades. No other party has taken a consistent stand against illegal migrants. And in fact, I was reading some of the reports in publications which have not been so friendly to the BJP. The sense of urgency with which the border fencing is being taken even in the marshy lands of Sundarbans, that is something you would not have seen or imagined happening with another government in place. So our commitment to national security remains. I'm talking about the larger ideological issues. When you talk about the midday meal scheme, yes, I mean that is something which can be reviewed over a period of time. But when it comes to ideological commitments, again, we are one party which sticks to its ideological commitment. The chicken neck corridor was immediately handed over to the center. Obviously, the SIR exercise, it's been somewhat tedious for certain people, But at the
It's
end of the
mostly,
day,
yes, it has disenfranchised people. In Mumbai, we are
that's
going
an
through it
that's
now,
an
right? And it is
that's
so
an
anxiety inducing, and there is no election, thankfully, around the corner. Till
Mhm.
29, we don't have
Well,
an election.
the date has been extended. It's 8 August now.
Yeah, yeah.
It can be extended further. The
And there's
point
no election, which is what makes it so palatable.
the point, and in fact, by the way, in this Parliament session, there's a very important bill
Hmm.
around birth and death
Yeah,
certificates registration
yeah.
also. Why? Because all of these issues are intertwined with larger national security. We have seen that people vote. That has happened, and that has been happening in certain states where, parties like TMC. Do you really think that, TMC would have collapsed the way they have collapsed had their entire premise of existence not centered around illegalities? So I think it's about time some of these larger issues also need to be talked about. I mean, border fencing is not a small issue. Ideally, we should not be in denial about the fact that religion has been the reason for the division between India and Pakistan. If there is a planned attempt to alter the demography of a state and subsequently the nation, are we not going to witness similar demands in the future? I think that way BJP is very futuristic.
There's so much we can talk about. There's ethanol 20, there is, the FCRA bill. Is that coming up in the monsoon session?
Yes, that is also listed. In fact, the bill had already been presented. It's supposed to be passed. Now again, FCRA is linked to conversion in Chhattisgarh, and in fact, I just brought out a book which speaks about the end of Naxalism. In fact, 2 years ago, I had written a book. I had more than written the book. I had put together an anthology, a collection of essays on the transformation of northeastern states. Now, the Congress party used to employ the term tyranny of distance. Very cleverly, they used to employ the term tyranny of distance to justify the non development of northeastern states. Now, strangely, I saw the same pattern in Naxal impacted areas. So, 16 years ago, exactly 16 years ago, between April 6, 2010 and May 28, 2010, there were two ferocious terror attacks in the hinterlands, Naxal terror attacks, which killed more than 225 people. Now, had we not gone after Naxalism, had Amit Shahji not gone after Naxalism, which with the kind of iron zeal which he went after, again, this problem would have persisted for the next 20 years. So that's the core difference which needs to be highlighted, or maybe it's purposely not highlighted by being highlighted by, a part of the media. These are hardcore facts. 1,000 plus people were killed only in Naxal violence in 2010. And wouldn't even talk about it because the mainstream media would be full of stories of the terror blasts, which were happening in the cities. So on an average, every 40 days, we had a terror blast either in Ahmedabad, either in Mumbai, even in Guwahati, Hyderabad. In fact, the entire country was covered. So I think India has come a long way since. And while the cockroach Janta Party, I don't know why it's been named that way,
It's a
might be.
satire. It was a take on what the Chief Justice of India said, or has supposed to have said, isn't it? So it's a take. You know that. It's satire. It's a quick take.
Well, I just wish political movements can sustain themselves on frivolous satire. Yes, satire is appreciated, but like I said, I doubt if they whether they know the difference between the judiciary and the government. The judiciary has a right to pass independent remarks, many of which we may not agree with.
We can keep talking to him. We have not gone into the FCRA in detail. There is the E20 issue, which also, I guess, will come up because there's been a lot of middle
Uh-huh.
class car owner angst about it. But maybe we should save it for another day because we can keep
Sure,
talking.
sure, absolutely. It was
Any,
lovely talking to you.
Thank you, Tuhin. Any last words? What do we expect? for this session, and the 12-year mark that we've just seen that the BJP marked a couple of months
Well,
ago.
reforms, and reforms. So, like I mentioned yesterday, the first hydrogen powered train made its journey in India. And I think that is the kind of innovation which you will keep seeing ahead. Next year, we'll witness the first bullet train between Mumbai and Ahmedabad, and subsequently in the years to come, there would be other bullet trains. So I think, reforms is something which we are committed to, which keeps us energized for the future. Cultural issues, obviously, are something which have always been our forte, because the other side has abandoned them. So you will keep seeing a amalgamation of Vikas and Virasat in newer forms as we surge ahead.
We'll
And
keep.
yes, this parliament session should be a historic session, because very few parliament sessions change the course of India's, parliamentary democracy in positive ways, and this should be one of them. So many of I think the women's reservation bill, which has been frivolously championed by the opposition parties, will finally see the light of the day.
Tuhin, your government passed the women's reservation bill in 2023 in a special session. We are witness to that. So that is done. You have linked it to delimitation, which you're now going to go after to try and
So
implement,
that
right?
makes logical sense, right? That makes logical sense. Delimitation was long overdue. So if you are allocating certain one third of the constituencies for women, and delimitation takes place 3 years hence, imagine the immediate restructuring, imagine the immediate you know revamp of the allocation which would have had to be done. These are things which the opposition also needs to understand, that it makes all the more sense for us to align it with delimitation, so that the administrative changes, once agreed upon, persist for the next 15 years without having to revisit them because of the delimitation exercise.
There's a lot going on, and like you've hinted, something historic is possibly on the cards in this monsoon session. We'll keep talking to him. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you. Absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you.